Why is it that most people struggle to lose fat even though they're eating better and exercising? I used to be one of these people for years until I learned what I'm gonna talk about in this video, which took my body from looking like this to now looking like this, and will help you get similar results, but way faster than me. Number 1, don't waste your time on bulking. Here's the thing, when you first wanted to get in shape, you probably heard of the terms bulking and cutting, right? What this basically means is that you eat less to burn fat, or that you eat more to gain muscle. The mistake that I did was that I focused on bulking when I was way too fat to begin with. Sure, bulking will help you to gain more muscle, but at the same time you will also gain fat. And that was the complete opposite of what I wanted. I just wanted to lose fat. I didn't care that much of the muscle at the time because I just needed to lose the fat more than anything else. Now the better option for me, and probably for you as well if you're already fat, is that you go on a cut. What this basically means is just that you eat less calories than your body needs to maintain its current weight. Now this will help you to lose fat and gain some muscle on the side, but it's not as much as if you were bulking. But the main point is that you don't gain any more fat than you already have. Now this doesn't have to be complicated like whatsoever. What I recommend most people to do when they first start, and I did this myself, is to clean up your eating environment first. This is something you can do way before you even start eating healthier. Now this sounds kind of obvious when I talk about it, but how you make things so much easier for yourself, especially when losing fat, is simply by not buying the foods in the first place that makes you lose progress. I mean, just think about this to yourself. Every single time, that you walk into your kitchen, you see chips, chocolate, candy, or whatever you can think of, just staring you straight in the eyes every single time you're in your kitchen. Sooner or later, no matter how disciplined you are, right, you will have a piece or two. And sooner or later, you opened every single thing you have in your kitchen and you started eating them. And this is something you can avoid by simply not buying it in the first place. Now, if you feel like you want my personal help to guide you step by step along the way to start losing belly fat, meanwhile you enjoy the process, then click the first link in the description. I only work with a few people at a time because each person that signs up, I want to give them my fullest attention so I can make sure they get results. Starting off with small adjustments like this makes a big difference in the way that your body looks. Slowly replacing the bad eating habits with good eating habits. And there are so many alternatives nowadays, so you can still enjoy yourself, different sugar-free versions or whatever you can think of. If you like sugary drinks, then just have the sugar-free version instead. If you have a sweet tooth, then have some fruit or Greek yogurt with honey. Number 2, a simple routine is what gets you results. Too many people, and this was me included, just completely overcomplicate the process of losing fat, making it way harder than it actually has to be. We watch countless and countless videos, on different workouts and different diets, only leaving us more confused than anything else. And at the end of the day, we don't even make any progress whatsoever. It wasn't until I started to build a simple routine for myself that I got way faster results. And I want you to learn from this mistake that I personally did. The more complicated you make something in your life right now, it's gonna be so much harder to stay consistent. And this can be whatever you think of, improving your eating, exercising, or whatever else. Now, of course, depending on your experience, we all have completely different starting points. But for me personally, when I started to lose fat, I followed the principle of having similar foods every single day of the week. It was a no-brainer diet. 1 to 2 days a week, I would cook a big batch of food that I could have for the next few days. This way, whenever I was hungry, I didn't make impulsive decisions on eating bad foods. I had food ready to eat in the fridge that was good for me, which made things way easier. And to what kind of food that I was eating, I just decided to keep it as basic as possible. What I personally did was just rotate between different proteins. I had chicken, beef, and fish on rotation, whatever I felt like. And then I combined that with rice or either potatoes, just making it as basic as possible because that was the easiest to be consistent with. Now, most of the time when I would prepare the protein, I did it in a stew form. I started off frying some vegetables. Then I added the protein to that. Then, I added some form of liquid, either it was stock or a can of tomatoes. And this made things way better when actually eating it. Because the last thing you want to eat, right, is like dry ass chicken that you had in the fridge for like 2 days ago. It tastes like eating a carpet. Once you create a basic approach for yourself when it comes to food that you can do consistently, on a week-to-week basis, just trust me when I say this, you will get way faster results than you actually think. Number 3, exercising is way more important than you think. I think you already know, right, that exercising is so good for you on any kind of level. But what people don't realize is that when you build more muscle in general, you also increase your metabolism, which in return helps you to burn more body fat. Your metabolism is basically your body's way of breaking down the food that you give it into energy. And when you have more muscle, it increases your metabolism. And what this means is that your body actually starts to burn the fat as well for energy, just besides the food that you give it. Now, when I say exercising, you don't have to go crazy, working out 6 days a week and running up hills every single day. Now, I simply just mean that you move your body more in general with whatever exercise that you enjoy doing. What I did at the start was go to the gym about 3 days a week, just getting into the habit of showing up and slowly learning the basics. At the start, it isn't that important what kind of workout routine you do, but more so that you just show up consistently. Now, on top of working out, the 3 days like I mentioned, I also added some form of low intensity cardio. Now, this can be whatever you enjoy doing, but for me personally, I like to keep it low effort. So what I basically did, which is increase the amount of walking that I did on a daily basis, because this is a complete no-brainer exercise you can do wherever you are pretty much. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this completely depends on your starting point. If you feel like 3 days a week and exercising pretty much every day, on a basic walk, that feels way too much for you to start with, then you have to lower the amount and go at your own pace. The most important thing is that you just move your body more in general. If it's 1 day a week or 7 days a week, at least you're moving your body. And why I'm telling you this and why it's important is because the mistake that a lot of people do, and I did this myself, especially when starting out, you do way too much to start with. You think to yourself that you can work out 5 days a week and go running every single day without having any experience whatsoever. But trust me when I say this, in just a matter of weeks, you will feel overwhelmed and then you will quit. So take the slower approach. Take your time to actually build a good routine for yourself that you can do consistently on a week-to-week basis. By having this approach, it's so much easier to actually get in shape, because it doesn't feel like this massive uphill battle that you're fighting. You actually just go at your own pace, and the results will come in just a matter of time. Now, I want to remind you, if you want my personal help to guide you step by step along the way to start losing the fat and build some muscle at the same time, then click the first link in the description. Number 4, make it enjoyable. Now, this might sound obvious, but I want you to think about this. What is the best way for you to stay consistent with something you do in your life? By actually enjoying what you're doing, right? It sounds obvious, but people don't think about this. I don't know why, but way too many people, right? They think about fitness and getting in shape as this full-time job that can't be enjoyable whatsoever. And that is one of the main reasons why they don't get the results, because they hate what they're doing and they can't stay consistent. If you try to make the process as enjoyable for yourself as possible, meanwhile you also get results, then suddenly, right, getting in shape is actually something you look forward to because it's fun to do. I personally just love going to the gym and working out. I can honestly say with hand on my chest, right, that working out is the best thing that I do all day, and I'm looking forward to it pretty much every single day because I know I'm improving myself. Meanwhile, I also have fun. Like, it can't get any better. You improve yourself and have fun at the same time. I don't know about you, but for most people, right, and this is me included, we feel the best when we have a good structure that we can follow on a day-to-day basis. Everyone likes having some kind of routine because it makes you feel like you're not wasting your time. I recently thought about this. The times where I made the least amount of progress in my life was when I didn't enjoy what I was doing. The times where you just feel forced to do something rather than doing it on your own terms. When you get to do it on your own terms, it's like way easier to actually get results, right? It's pretty obvious when you think about it, right? Who's gonna walk the furthest? The person who only looks forward to the destination, or the person who enjoys the walking itself? I mean, come on. If you actually enjoy what you do, you don't think about the end result nearly as much. You know, the end result itself is just a big bonus that you get by already doing something you enjoy doing. You know, for me personally, if I could never improve the way that I looked by eating better and exercising, I would still do it on a daily basis because it's actually fun for me and the results is just a byproduct. You know, there are so many more benefits besides looking good that you get from eating better and exercising. You know, I have better sleep, I'm way more happy and positive. I have better mental health, you know, the list just goes on and on and on. You know, if you get the ball rolling on this journey, where you create a routine for yourself you enjoy doing and can do it consistently, just trust me when I say this, once you get to see all the benefits you will get, you will just wish to yourself that you actually started so much sooner. Now, if I wanted to lose fat easier and faster, there are some few specific things I would do. And in this video, I'll talk more about them.